Okay. Do you want to say a couple words before I hit share?
Yeah. Yeah, so good morning. Thanks for joining us. My name is Bob Kessler. I'm with Newfields Ag. We are the sponsor of this event. And this morning we're going to focus on a couple of seed treatments that we offer from Dakota Bio, the B4ST and Dust, and the Phenom and Dust, Phenom ST and Dust. But I wanted to start with a little bit of information for us to think about as we work our way through this information today. As you might already know, Russia and Ukraine are two of the world's top 10 producers of wheat. But we all know what's going on over there with the war, sanctions, scarcities, weather events. 22 and 23 have been a couple of slowest planting seasons for wheat since 1996. So given the overall scarcities of wheat on the market, we're seeing an uptick, growers considering transitioning from other crops to winter wheat this fall to hopefully capitalize on that. While this is a great opportunity for winter wheat growers to receive a better return on their investment, it should not just be put into the ground blindly. We hope to have a strategic plan for winter wheat seeding because that can be a difference between capitalizing on this opportunity or not capitalizing on that. Newfields Ag is encouraging growers to invest in a seed treatment this fall to support soil microbes and germination. Seed treatments support the microbial layer around the seed and enhance germination and early plant development and vigor. Growers doing fall seeding, we know that you need solutions, and that's what we're trying to bring to you to aid in uniform germination and stand establishment. Wheat needs to get out of the ground, not a lot, but winter wheat does need to get out of the ground to be viable for next spring. By pairing traditional seeding practices with these innovative seed treatments, such as B4ST and Phenom ST, you can increase crop yield and return on investment on your fall seeded crops. This morning, I'm glad to welcome Steve Vistad with one of our valued partners, Dakota Bio. Steve will be presenting the many benefits of the B4ST and Phenom ST products sold through Newfields Ag and our reseller network. Thanks for joining us, Steve. It's all yours.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the invite to come and talk to all of you. So give me a second here to get the screen share going. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Now let me get my presenter slide up. Okay. So thank you, Bob. Thank you, Newfields Ag. I will, as Bob said, I'll be giving you a quick intro into Dakota Bio. And in case you hadn't heard of us or know of us, I'll give you a quick intro into who we are and what we do. And then we'll be talking about Phenom ST and B4ST products as themselves in general, and then kind of tie it back into how they work and what they do with winter wheat. So as we're going through this, and as I'm talking, think of it as a conversation. And if you have a question, just shout it out, let me know. So let's get started. So who we are. So Dakota Bio is a privately owned company. We're not funded by venture capital or private equity with East Coast, West Coast money. We are originally, and at our hearts, we're Midwest farmers. All of the people in our company have farm backgrounds, and some still farm. But we've been working in biologicals for several decades now. and we really love it. It's a passion of ours along with farming, and we really put an emphasis on using these biologicals to solve problems. Because that's the way our soil, and that's the way nature and plants and the relationship between soil and plants is designed. And so it's all about addressing and solving problems. And we really put a strong emphasis on nutrient delivery and nutrient availability with the use of biologicals. So that's in brief, that's who we are and what we do. But everything is designed to solve a problem on your farm and create a healthier, higher yielding, more profitable crop. So we do have a sales team scattered across the Midwest. Our true heaviest focus in agriculture is basically from Montana to Ohio to Kansas, kind of that triangle. So please, reach out to your Newfields Ag rep with questions and conversation. And our people are available to help you out with meetings and education, no matter where you're at. We're here for you. To look a little deeper under the covers here, we do ferment all of our products except for one, and I'll explain that in a minute. But our fermentation process, so fermentation, that is the growing of the bacteria. And that happens in these stainless steel tanks. So think of these tanks as like a feed line, where we're providing the feed and the health and taking care of these organisms to get them to grow in a very healthy manner. Plant number one is all human pharmaceutical grade fermentation. This is hands down one of the, probably the best. I get a little apprehensive saying it the best because there might be something out there I don't know, but when it's human pharmaceutical grade fermentation, this is top notch. I've not found a better facility in agriculture in North America. And it's pharmaceutical grade water purification and sterilization processes. It just is top of the line. What we find in our industry with most of our competitors is a lot of poly tanks and poly plumbing and non-sterile environments. And what this brings us is just much higher concentrations and much more stable products, much more consistent products, higher win rates. And we're really proud of the quality that we put into production. Plant number two over here on the right, that is a company we hire to produce and ferment our B4ST product. They are one of the world leaders in probiotics and human supplement fermentation. And they actually are sometime this year with their production contracts. Before the end of the year, 1 billion people a day will be consuming biologicals from this facility. So this is very, very advanced facilities where we produce our products, second to none. And we really believe in it. It comes down to product quality. If these biologicals are not healthy, then they don't perform as well for your crop and in your field. When we're developing our products, we try to sum it up into these 3 core principles that we follow. So it's first and foremost is, what is the agronomic benefit? What problem do these products address and solve for you? And then because of our farm background, we put a very, very strong emphasis on operational benefits. And that's not, and I'm not talking about us, I'm talking about the customer. These are add-on products that you add to a seed treatment or add to a foliar herbicide spray or add to a liquid in furrow pass. It's all about how do these products adapt to what you're already doing so it's easy for you to apply, easy for you to use, not adding extra passes across a field or extra steps. We can't add more work to your day. So because of, at our heart, we're farmers, we get the equipment. We understand it. We understand the challenges that go into raising a crop and that everyone deals with on a daily basis. And these biologicals, they need to solve a problem. They need to be easy to use. And then thirdly, the third core principle we look at is they have to bring you profit. And by solving problems and improving plant health and whatever whichever product, they're all different, but whatever they do, whatever problem they solve, it's got to make you more money. And that's what we focus on in product development. So products get tested extensively before they ever reach the market and get to becoming a commercially viable product. So we have two different labs with tons of testing that these biologicals have to go through. Then they graduate after the lab, they move on to grow rooms, so very small scale testing. Then they go to an internal research farm. That's our research farm with larger plots and replications and real world equipment, planters, sprayers, liquid and furrow, treaters. I mean, it has to, so many times we hear from these scientists, and a lot of these scientists are brilliant, but just because something works in a test tube doesn't mean it works through a USC treater or a 120-foot boom sprayer or a 36-row John Deere planter. It has to work in the real world under a variety of conditions for it to become a product from Dakota Bio. Then, after it passes our internal research farm, it goes on to 13 different independent research farms scattered across the Midwest, 20 locations, 12 different states, and that's where we put out thousands of research plots. This is where we get all of the yield data that you'll see in a presentation like this today, our sell sheets, our catalogs, our website. That all comes from these independently replicated research farms. So it's thousands and thousands of data points behind these products. So that's enough about us. Unless you have questions, let's dive right into the first product we're going to discuss today, and that is Phenom. So Phenom is a blend of two different endophyte bacteria. One of these bacteria is for fixing nitrogen. That is its sole purpose, is it provides nitrogen to your crop. The other bacteria increases that plant's ability to process and metabolize phosphorus. So you're getting an increase in your efficiency inside the plant of phosphorus. Phenom can be used on all crops. We have not found a plant that Phenom does not work on and increase the phosphorus efficiency and increase the supply of nitrogen. So there are two different Phenom products. Phenom ST goes on the seed. It's a seed treatment. Phenom goes in furrow or foliar. And coming in 2024, so spring of 2024, there is a higher concentration in the package of Phenom. So we are now going to be up to 1 million bacteria per milliliter of product. So as I said, to dive a little deeper here, I said these are two different endophyte bacteria. So to give you a quick explanation of what is an endophyte, endophytes live inside the plant. They are not free living in your soil. They live in plants. We discovered them in a plant. We discovered them actually in a willow tree in the mountains up in the state of Washington. And through years of research and isolation, we were able to get those bacteria out of the plant and learn how to ferment them. And just after many years of research, it's now phenom. These live inside plants. So when you use phenom ST and you treat a seed, so in this example, in this discussion, we'll talk about wheat, you're putting the phenom on that seed, then you're planting the seed, well, then the seed germinates. And when that seed germinates, that first shoot, that coleoptile, and that first root right after the radical, right after germination, is full of these microscopic openings called stoma. And this is where respiration and breathing and air comes into that plant. And right after germination, the cell division, everything's very, very active. It's the miracle of life. It's birth, in essence. And through those openings, those stoma, that is how the bacteria enter the plant right at germination. So as that seedling grows, our bacteria is inside the plant before emergence. And what
Okay,
happens
Steve.
is, yes,
Steve,
yes.
you've got a question, Jared?
Okay, I can't see that screen. Let me know.
Yeah, Steve, I should know the answer to this question, but do you define a difference between increased phosphorus efficiency and increased phosphorus mineralization? How would you define the difference between those two with regards to phenom?
With phenom, we are inside the plant and affecting the plant and how it's consuming and using the phosphorus. We are not affecting the mineralization from the soil or the solubilization for the soil. So we are not increasing uptake by the roots. We are increasing the output of that phosphorus inside the plant. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It's just one of those distinctions that we don't hear very, very often.
Correct. And that's where in a couple minutes when we discuss B4ST, B4ST is amazing at solubilizing and mineralizing the phosphorus that's in the soil to get more into the root. And phenom is affecting how that plant metabolizes that phosphorus. So truly, these two products we're going to discuss this morning work together extremely well. So I'm going to keep moving here, but thank you for that. Great question. Good distinction. So after that seed germinates and after emergence occurs, your seedling grows into a plant. And as it grows, you're getting stoma forming up and down the stems and on the underside of the leaves. So this is a cross section of a leaf. The stoma are on the undersides of those leaves. Remember, that's that opening where the plant exhales and releases oxygen and releases water vapor and inhales. It's like an inhale. So air from the atmosphere comes in. Well, phenom, these bacteria, they reproduce and they multiply and they translocate throughout the plant. So when you put that little bit on the seed and they get in the plant, they just keep increasing in numbers throughout the life of that plant. And they grow inside the stoma and just keep multiplying and increasing in number. So these blue shapes here represent phenom inside the leaf. So when that stoma opens and air from the atmosphere enters the leaf, our atmosphere is 78% nitrogen, but it's in the N2 form. Plants can't use N2. Phenom converts N2 to NH4 inside the plant. So the longer phenom is in the plant, the more bacteria are going to populate that plant, the more breathing and respirating that the plant does, the more nitrogen we're going to feed that plant. So as the plant grows, so you just go through all the stages of life of wheat, when you put that phenom on the seed, you are in the plant the longest. You begin fixing nitrogen right at emergence and throughout the life cycle of that plant until it ripens and dies. Now, you can come along and put phenom foliar on, let's say out here, works very well, but you're fixing less nitrogen because you are in the plant for a shorter duration of time. Putting phenom on the seed is the best because you're increasing the seedling vigor, the stand establishment, and the growth to fuel more tillers, bigger leaves, bigger, healthier, better fed plants. Been using this picture for several years now, but it really demonstrates the power of putting phenom with the seed. This is corn, obviously, not wheat. But what happened in this farm is the fall before planting, when they applied anhydrous, half the toolbar broke and was not putting out anhydrous. So the next spring, they planted corn, and as the corn came up, you could see these yellow streaks through the corn all the way across the field. Nitrogen deficient corn. See it. So the dark streaks was the toolbar that was working and applying anhydrous. The yellow streak is the deficient, nitrogen deficient corn that didn't get the anhydrous. And as you go across the field, they had a 10-acre test strip of phenom. And they applied the phenom in furrow, touching the seed. The yellow stripes disappeared instantly. There was no nitrogen deficiency inside that test strip. The phenom solved the problem. You know, nitrogen is a very, very volatile nutrient. It can leach, it can volatilize, denitrification. There's just constant loss of nitrogen. But in the real world, we all farm. There's mechanical issues, there's scheduling issues, there's just all kinds of problems. Well, phenom solved that problem and saved that corn, and it worked out to be 17.5 bushel increase. But it really shows the power of the ability to fix nitrogen, especially when you get it there day one, touching the seed. This was some testing we were doing down in Missouri this year. And in these pictures, we'll go around the 4 pictures here, but the phenom, the treated is on the left, the untreated is on the right in each picture. So at V4 corn, this tissue test called for 40 pounds of nitrogen. They were in a pretty severe drought at about V4, a lot of heat stress, a lot of drought stress. They decided not to apply nitrogen. They decided to just spray with phenom, the foliar application. And to be 100% open and honest with you, when a plant is drought stressed and heat stressed, the stoma's closed. And that is some of the most difficult conditions for phenom to perform under, because that stoma needs to be open, the plant needs to be breathing to allow air from the atmosphere to enter the leaf and to get the N2 in and convert it to NH4 and feed the plant. So this was putting phenom to the test under the hardest conditions. We were seeing 2 more kernels around with the phenom versus the untreated. Longer cobs with the phenom versus the untreated. Much thicker stalks. That's a much healthier plant. And we don't know what October's going to bring. You know, we've all been in situations, and I'm talking corn here for a second, taking a break from the wheat, but you don't know what conditions come that stock degradation and tipping and corn blowing down. Stronger stocks can make the difference in getting a crop versus not sometimes. Bigger leaves. So this is hard to see, I know, but the untreated leaf is overlaid by the leaf from the treated plant. So bigger leaves. This untreated leaf came in at 3¼ The treated plant, the leaf on the same stage is 4¼ It's a much bigger leaf, and that just promotes all these extra benefits within the plant and the ability to produce. So Phenom is a very, very beneficial product for supplying nitrogen and increasing that efficiency of how that plant uses phosphorus. Another side-by-side test here is untreated corn versus treated. The greener leaves, the bigger leaves, the greener stalks versus firing and cannibalization. This is a nitrogen deficiency. Nitrogen is not only just mobile in our soil, it's mobile in the plant. When that plant is trying to fill ears, it has a very high demand for nitrogen. And when your soil is running low, it will move that nitrogen from the root ball, the stalks, the lower leaves, up the plant to fill an ear. Well, that creates a weaker stalk. That is a nitrogen deficiency. Phenom, we're keeping the greener leaves. We're keeping the green stalks. We have a better fed, higher yielding plant. Lots of field tests and stuff, but lots of research going on. But we do lots of untreated, and then we put competitors all side by side with the Phenom. And very common do we see our highest yields without cutting nitrogen. That's where in this test we came in 10 bushels above the untreated. We're averaging across all of these thousands of tests we've done across all these research farms, we're averaging about 9 bushel per acre nationally on corn. Then we will take away nitrogen. We'll apply less. We'll take 50 pounds away and put out the tests. And this is a very common situation of what we see right here. On corn, you take away that 50 pounds of N and apply the Phenom, and we're coming in 1 to 3 bushel above the 200 pounds of N untreated. So it's a very, very good supply of nitrogen and phosphorus efficiency. So you got to remember, everybody likes to focus on the nitrogen story, but there is a tremendous benefit to how we affect that plant and how it processes phosphorus, especially early on in those seedling stages right after emergence. The seedling vigor, cold tolerance, plant health. It is very, very important to have the phosphorus available and then to have the Phenom increase the efficiency of that phosphorus. So to touch on some of the operational benefits of Phenom is there's low use rates, convenient package sizes, easy tank mix with seed treatments and starters and foliars and inoculants. And it's a long living nitrogen fixing biological. This industry of these nitrogen fixing biologicals, when you look at the nitrogen products, the Phenoms, the Pivot Bios, the Invitas, those are the main 3 in the industry. But compared to a lot of products, these nitrogen biologicals are pretty fragile. But when you compare them with each other, Phenom is a very hardy organism. There's a lot of operational benefits. So to focus here on the seed treatment, it comes in a bladder, 1 bladder in a case, and that bladder treats 120 hundredweight of seed. You apply it at 2 ounces per 100 pounds of seed, and you have an on-seed life of 30 days. So what that means is you treat the seed, and you have 30 days to plant. Now, it's a biological. So with any biological, we're firm believers in treating and planting is the best. You have that window of 30 days because things happen. You're busy and maybe you gotta treat your wheat because you got many other things going on the farm. Maybe it rains and delays. There's just a multitude of reasons why we might wait. What's best for the biological, for the bacteria, is treat and plant as soon as possible. And then our shelf life is what it's called of our product of Phenom ST. So unopened packages have a 10-month shelf life. So very long living in the package, long living in the seed, low 2-ounce rate. So very operational friendly product for the seed dealer or the farmer.
You got questions, Steve?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, so just for like chemigation through irrigations, is that a possibility? I see there's no pre-blending with water. What does that actually mean? And then the chemigation question.
Okay, great call out there. Some of our competitors, when you mix with a starter fertilizer, you need to add extra water as a buffer. So extra water is not needed. When you're talking chemigation through irrigation systems, so like a pivot, for example, is that what you're referring to?
Correct.
Okay, that you're already putting water out there. That we would consider that a foliar application. Yes, you can do that. That would be Phenom as a foliar at a 16-ounce, 1 pint per acre rate. Phenom ST is a little different formulation to help the survivability on the seed, where Phenom is a little different because that's mixing more commonly with some foliar fungicides or foliar micros or foliar herbicides. So through a pivot, I would recommend Phenom. Through a seed treater, I would recommend Phenom ST. But yes, we have lots of people use Phenom through pivots on many different crops.
Best.
Was there other?
No, that's great. Thanks. I didn't know it was categorized in columns here. And then, but when you do that, it would be preferably early in the germination process for that foliar.
For the foliar would be early post-emergence for the foliar is the best. Now let's take corn, for example. Most of our more research goes into corn than it does wheat, just kind of the way it is. But we will apply Phenom foliar on corn out to tassel in a lot of situations with a fungicide application and still see tremendous results. But if you want to fix the most nitrogen possible, I recommend the first post-emerge pass. Get it in that plant early so you have more days of that plant breathing, more days of that stoma to open, more days for that Phenom to multiply and grow and reproduce and populate that plant. And the more days you have, the more nitrogen you fix. Did you have another question, sir? That was a great question. Okay. I'll keep moving. Great questions. So yield data averages. So we got 4 years of testing. Phenom ST on winter wheat is averaging a 87% win rate across all these research farms, averaging +4 bushel per acre and coming out at almost a 5% yield increase. And then the Phenom foliar on wheat is coming in pretty similar, 86% win rate, 5 bushel the acre, 5.5% yield increase. Phenom on corn, 77% win rate, plus 8.2 bushel, 4% yield increase. And Phenom on soybeans is coming in at a 78% win rate, 2.7 bushel, 4% yield increase. But really what you're seeing here, 87, 86, 77, 78, very consistent. This is, like I said, thousands and thousands of data points here coming in at this. Very consistent. That's 3 different crops. And when we look at all of our data points in the database, it is very similar in these 80 to 90, in these 80% win rates across all of our crops. I mean, from ornamental flowers and turf grass to potatoes to corn, you name it. Because all plants need nitrogen and all plants benefit from increased phosphorus efficiency. So we're addressing 2 of the macronutrients here with this one product. So very consistent win rates and high win rates. So to wrap up Phenom before we get to B4 is providing nitrogen to your crop. It's increasing the phosphorus efficiency inside the plant. We're increasing plant health, leaf size, stalk size, and yield and profits per acre. And it's easy to use. So before we move to B4, is there any questions on Phenom? Okay, I'll keep moving. So B4. B4 is a blend of 4 different bacillus bacteria. This is just like Phenom, this is a liquid product. These are in very, very high concentrations in the package, and they're in the spore form. So what that means is they are dormant, and they have grown a shield around their DNA. So they are very, very hardy. This is a very robust, aggressive, hardy product. Of biologicals on the industry, this is one of the easiest and most versatile products you could try on your farm. When you treat a seed with B4ST, you're putting that bacteria on the seed and you're planting that seed, and then the organic matter in the soil brings that B4 out of its dormancy and it starts to grow. And then when the seed germinates, it attaches and grows on the root, because the root of all plants, secrete these plant exudates. And that is the #1 favorite food source of B4. So they grow and colonize on the root. Now we stained the B4 for this picture to show it, so it's not out in your field. You're not going to see this red glow. That was special in the lab just to give it a visual, because it is clear. You can't see it in the field. But what happens is we coat the root of the crop all season long. As that root grows, the B4 just keeps coating it. So what we're doing here with B4 is we're treating the soil. We're only treating the soil that touches the root. And what it does is it is solubilizing phosphorus and potassium, chelating some zinc and sulfur, or not sulfur, but zinc and iron, and solubilizing phosphorus. So it's treating that soil and the nutrients that are in that soil and not available to feed your crop. But we're only doing that to the soil that touches your root. B4 also has some natural antifungal properties. So it is an excellent, excellent product. So to take a very, very quick look at soil pH, all soils tie up phosphorus. It just kind of depends on your pH of your soil, whether you're tying up lower amounts of phosphorus or higher amounts. So that's where you get in these mid-6s for soil pH. That's where your phosphorus availability is best, but it's not 100% available. There's still tie-up. As you go up in pH, the tie-up increases and your available phosphorus decreases. As you go down in pH, your available phosphorus decreases, your tie-up increases. That's where, as the plant grows, the B4 just keeps growing on the root and touching the soil that has all the tied up nutrients in it and releasing those nutrients, converting them and releasing them from the soil to the root to be taken up and feed your plant. So just a few research farm picks here. You can see the increase in plant growth. These are side by side, treated versus untreated. Soybeans respond extremely well. Wheat does too. Here's one research where we had the test strip of B4 in the back and the untreated in the front, and just made enough of a difference to where the stock strength withstood the 70-mile-an-hour winds that came and knocked down the corn, and it just made all the difference in the crop. But it increased plant health, increased nutrient availability, increased the stock strength, and had that plant stand. So operational benefits. So very low use rates, can be used on all crops. Convenient package sizes, easy tank mixes, long life tank mixes, long shelf lives, but it's all about getting B4 in contact with the seed. So whether you're doing, let's say, corn and applying in furrow, or wheat or soybeans or any other crop using a seed treatment, the seed treatment rate is 1 ounce per 100 pounds of seed, so very low rate. Comes in 2 by 2.5 gallon jugs. Starting next spring, so spring of 2024, we will have 6 by 50 units, so a small bottle that treats 50 units coming in a 6-pack in a case. But right now, this fall is all that's available is the 2 by 2.5 gallon jugs. So a case treats 640 hundredweight of seed. And you have an on-seed life of 200 days. That's the power of these spores. So let's go back in a couple minutes here. Phenom was 30 days. B4 is over 200 days. Phenom had a 10-month shelf life. B4 is a 24-month shelf life. So unopened package, 24 months.
You got a question, Steve?
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jared.
Hey, Steve, question for you about the mineralization of iron, and another one on the antifungal. When you're talking about iron, are you talking about converting ferric to ferrous iron for iron deficiency chlorosis, or does it have any influence on that? And then on the antifungal, are you talking Phytophthora pithium in conjunction with fungal seed treatments like Intego or Excella?
Great questions. So it's actually a natural chelator. So it is converting that iron it's chelating that iron and making it available to that plant in the soil. Now, when we look at B4, it is very low levels of iron and zinc. It is very high levels of phosphorus and potassium. So when we selected strains for B4, these really excel at having drastic increases in the availability of phosphorus and potassium. And it also does some zinc and iron, but it is at lower levels. So think of that as just an extra added small bonus, but it is truly a phosphorus and potassium product. Now, when it comes to the natural antifungal properties, because of the EPA, that's all I'm allowed to say. We have done extensive testing, but it is not registered as a fungicide, so I cannot use the F word without severe fines and penalties. Sorry to word it that way, Jared, but I know people that have gotten in significant issues because of discussing that. But the EPA allows us to say natural antifungal properties. Okay, we'll
Hey,
keep going.
Steve, this is
Yes.
Brian. Steve,
Yes.
Steve, this is Brian. How do you see overall plant health contributing to those issues that Jared just talked about with the plant health side? Do you see that the B4 in this particular case would assist with natural plant defenses as well? Do you see that happening?
Yes, absolutely. And it comes back to two different things. The organisms in B4, so there's 4 of them in there and multiple strains, but some do feed on certain pathogens in the soil. And the biofilm that coats the roots is a very good natural defense. And then the increase in nutrient availability increases plant health and growth. So it is really kind of a triple type of action. But I can't say, and I won't say more than natural antifungal properties. I'm not a fan of the EPA.
Yeah, neither are we. Thanks.
All righty then. Let's so to kind of, before we wrap up here, I really want to touch on the B4ST is extremely high concentrated. It comes back to the state-of-the-art fermentation facilities and these abilities we have in production. And when you're reading the label of these biological products, and I don't care what it is, it's confusing. So don't feel bad. And then every guy like me, we all say, read the label. Well, it's different reading a biological label than a chemistry label, because it's in exponents. It's into the 10th power per CFUs per mLs. So I just want to take a minute here to just kind of break it down, because I grew up in a little town in North Dakota, and I took math class. And I think in the 8th grade, they spent a week on exponents, and I didn't pay the closest attention. So maybe you guys were much better students than myself, but so I'm going to give you a little quick review of the exponents. 10 to the 9, that is 10 times 10 times 10, 9 times. And all of the organisms in B4ST are at 10 to the 9th. That is 10 billion bacteria, colony-forming units per milliliter. We have competitors in this bacillus market, competing products that are as low as 10 to the 2. Most are in the 10 to the 5. So 10 to the 2, there's more bacillus in your tap water. There's more bacillus in your mouth right now than 10 to the 2. 10 to the 5, some of the good ones, 10 to the 5 is 1 million. So you're getting 1 million bacteria per milliliter versus 10 billion bacteria per milliliter. So we can spout all these numbers, but I'm going to put it in a visual for you. So brand X, 10 to the 5. Think of that as 1 bushel of wheat. B4ST at 10 to the 9 is 10,000 bushels of wheat. So when you're buying B4, this is what you're getting for concentration of bacteria versus a lot of our competitors. It is astronomical, the difference. So I'll give you one more visual. If you think of that 10 to the 5 as a semi-load of wheat, and then the B4ST at 10 to the 9, that's equal to getting 2,285 rail cars of wheat. So when we're putting grain in the bin, we want more. When you're buying and purchasing a biological to solve a problem on your farm, you want more. And that's what you get with B4ST in that jug. There is nothing on the market that is going to compare to the concentrations of B4ST. And then you have the research of the phosphorus solubilization and the potassium solubilization and the biofilm creation of coating those roots. So to wrap it up, why is this concentration so important? Because the higher your concentrations of B4 in these organisms in that product, in that seed treatment, that increases the speed of your biofilm creation. So that means more biofilm. That's coating of the roots. The biofilm is the coating of the roots. More biofilm means more contact with the soil. More contact with the soil means you're solubilizing more phosphorus and potassium. And we're doing that to the soil that touches your roots. If you got phosphorus out here in the soil, far away from that plant, not touching the root, we don't care. You shouldn't either. It's about what's in that soil touches your root. And when B4 coats every root and every root hair, we're touching more soil. That's why concentration is so important. Because as that root grows, we are coating every root hair throughout the whole growing season. And that means we're touching more soil. Yield data. So after 5 years of testing, corn coming in at an 84% win rate, averaging 7.7 bushel the acre, 3.7 yield increase, percent yield increase. Soybeans, an 84% win rate, plus 4.2 bushel per acre, 4.5% yield increase. B4ST on wheat, a 90% win rate, averaging 6.4 bushel per acre and an 8.5% yield increase. And then we have tested this on so many different plants and crops, and we are coming in at an overall win rate across all our crops, an 87% win rate. B4 does not care what plant it grows on. It is aggressive and it grows. And as long as that plant is alive, B4 is alive and growing on the roots and contacting the soil that touches your root and increasing the phosphorus and potassium availability to that root. So then to wrap it up, the full product lineup from Dakota Bio, we make way more products than Phenom and B4, but we got a new crop residue corn stalk digester product, DB32 on the market. Always keep in mind Phenom for all your crops. Frenzy is a tremendous stress mitigator for crops. DB29, soil biology activator, that's like a booster for any biological. It's a phenomenal type of product. Then the B4 products that we discussed today, and we make a full line of legume inoculants, soybeans, chickpeas, peas, peanuts, you name it. But so we
Here's
are a
another
full line
question here,
manufacturer.
Steve.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
you got another question?
Let's hear
Jared?
it.
Hey, Steve, one more for you. Will B4 colonize along a mycorrhizal network along with the actual root network?
Great question. And I think, so thank you, Jared. I think what you're asking is, does it grow? Let me back up a couple slides. Does it grow on the mycorrhizae or does it grow just on the root? Is that what you're asking?
That or both?
Okay, good clarification. It does not grow. So when the mycorrhizae really extends out, now I am not a pro when it comes to mycorrhizae. We see it working very good in conjunction with mycorrhizae, but to our knowledge, we don't believe it grows on those long filaments and extensions. We believe the B4 stays at the root. So I don't have a lot of experience in working with tank mixing and in working with B4. So like We don't have tests of B4, then mycorrhizae, then B4 plus mycorrhizae. But from what we know and see in the labs, we think they're a very good combination. We don't think it grows on the mycorrhizae.
Very good. Thank you, Steve.
No, thank you, Jared. And welcome to the new team here.
Thank you, sir. I already feel at home as if I already know some of these products.
I know. When Chris told me about this, I told Chris, I'm like, that makes sense. That's a good thing. The only downside was I wish I had thought of it. So good
I'm
job.
laughing on this end.
Yeah. What else? What else we got for questions? Okay. You want me to stop sharing, Bob?
You got anything else? Any more slides?
That was it.
There's a question.
Okay.
There's a question, Bob.
Okay, go ahead.
Does the seed inoculant application of B4 get affected or lose efficacy with seed treatments, or vice versa?
No, because B4 is dormant and in the spore form, we can actually tank mix with an inoculant or with a seed treatment like fungicide, insecticide seed treatments. So we can mix on the seed or mix in the package or mix in the seed treater. The B4 does not break dormancy and leave the spore form, that shield, until you get organic matter or a carbon source, which is a food, in conjunction with it. So for example, you could, if you got kegs of fungicide or jugs of fungicide, you could put the B4 right in that fungicide. Doesn't bother it. But as soon as you add a carbon source, then all of a sudden the B4 wakes up, loses its shield, and then the fungicide can harm it. So here's a better example. Starter fertilizers. Let's say you got starter fertilizer and liquid in furrow for corn planting. You can mix B4 and 1034O. Not a problem. But you go dump a humic acid in there that's a carbon source. Now all of a sudden you bring that B4 to life, and then the toxicity of the 1034O can harm the B4. In fungicides, very similar. Is no harm.
Okay. I came in late, but what do you recommend for a residue breakdown this fall?
DB32 is our product for residue breakdown. And that wasn't one of the topics today, but we certainly got people that can help you with that. But that is a phenomenal foliar post-harvest. Break down the corn residue or the wheat stubble, flax. It doesn't care. As long as it's dead plant matter, it is going to consume the residue and put those nutrients back in the soil in a usable form to feed your next crop. So very, very significant increases in nutrient availability and then planter performance also. And it can be spring applied or fall applied. Yes.
Another question from Jared.
Sorry, Steve, I'm always putting you on the spot today. You mentioned humic acid. I figured that would wake up the B4. What about fulvic acid?
Yes, correct. Sugars, humics, fulvics, anything carbon source. Because those products really wake it up. If you tank mix, like let's say you take a a jug of B4 and you dump some humic or fulvic or a sugar in there, it's going to grow. It is not dormant anymore, and you do not have the shield anymore. So they work great together until you add a third component that is harmful to biologicals. So B4 is very durable and hardy and safe when it's in that spore form. The spore is like, think of it like a shield, like a vault. You're putting it in a safe, and it is locked in with a steel shield around it. Nothing can touch it. You add sugar or fulvic or humic or a carbon to it, all of a sudden that shield disappears and that B4 bursts to life, and then the antibacterials and fungals and fungicides and toxic products cause their harm.
I imagine the same thing would be true if we're tank mixing phenom with herbicide and fungicide for a post-emergence strip as well.
True. That's where a phenom cannot produce a spore. That is not a spore-producing bacteria. So that's where a phenom, when you mix that with a herbicide, let's say, or a fungicide for a foliar application, that's where for herbicides, you got a 10-hour tank mix. And fungicides, pretty similar. Probably follows the same rule of thumb, is about a 10-hour. And then some starter fertilizers with phenom, you got a 15-day tank mix time. So very, very different. And that's what I was referring to with these nitrogen fixing bacteria. They are very fragile. They are not spore formers. And we can't defy nature. But so that's where you have shorter windows of application with those products versus these spore formers like a bacillus. What else? Great questions. So if
Any
you're
other
planting
questions?
if you're planting winter wheat this fall, you should really be thinking about some Phenom ST or some B4 ST. If you're not planting winter wheat, that's okay. We don't hold that against you, but you still want to talk Newfield's Ag to get some of this for next spring for wheat, corn, spring wheat, soybeans, whatever you may farm.
Yeah, and we're thinking even for this fall, it doesn't even have to be specifically winter wheat, but any winter grain, any cover crop. If somebody is putting a cover crop in and maybe grazing it this fall yet, they're going to see more tonnage, higher value
Yes.
cover, and come out of the winter with probably less winter kill. So there's a lot of different benefits there, other than, in the forage as well as in the grain.
That's exactly right. And that winter survivability, increasing that plant health and that root establishment to provide a more healthy plant going into the dormancy period, if you're in that area of the country, that can make a huge difference in winter survivability under some conditions.
Correct.
You
We'll
get
see no more.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was going to say, I'm originally from North Dakota, where we are not very successful at growing winter wheat because of our winters. But you get into some of those areas, you're walking a real fine line of winter wheat surviving and producing the next year versus not surviving. And plant health makes a big difference, increasing your chance of success.
Correct. Yeah, and we wanted Newfield's Ags wants you to know that we do have some promotions going right now on the B4 ST and Dust and the Phenom ST and Dust. We put together a program for some special pricing on a per acre basis. So get together with your dealer or your distributor on those promotions. We also have a 0% interest financing going through the fall and through about the middle of January. So you could take advantage of that, but we'll also have some cash discounts, early order discounts. So get together with your Newfields Ag rep for those details. We want to thank you, Steve, for your time, your presentation. Appreciate your expertise, answers to some of these questions. Thank you to everybody for attending. Please keep in mind, and we encourage you to be looking out for further webinars. Look for those on posts, emails, things like that, so that we can continue to bring this information to you throughout the fall and winter. Hope you have a great rest of the week. Take care.
Have a safe harvest.
Yes, and be safe.
Thank you.